Today, we continue watching the Vampire Diaries, set in the supernatural town of Mystic Falls, rich with a dark and mysterious history. In the previous episode, a new transfer student arrived, but Bonnie has a bad feeling about Stefan. Meanwhile, terrifying animal attacks on people have started occurring throughout the town. The town's annual Founders Ball is being held today, and Elena has invited Stefan to attend with her. The families who first founded Mystic Falls hold a ball every year. This tradition has been passed down to the present, which is why it's called the Founders Party. Hearing this, Stefan feels a bit sad, as his family is no longer invited, but Elena has to go. This year, in addition to the ball, there is also a historical artifact exhibition. Each family must hand over an heirloom, and the Founders Council specifically requested Elena's attendance. Reluctantly, Stefan agrees to go with her. Meanwhile, Damon uses his compulsion ability to brainwash Caroline so he can attend the ball. Caroline has several bite marks on her body and is curious if she's turning into a vampire. Damon explains that to become a vampire, you need to drink my blood first. Afterward, Damon returns to the mansion. The butler, Zach, is slightly displeased with Damon's behavior, which triggers Damon's murderous intent. Luckily, Stefan arrives just in time, causing Damon to stop. Stefan wants to get rid of his brother but is powerless to do so. Ever since he gave up drinking human blood, he's no longer a match for Damon. Zach suggests using vervain, which can weaken vampires. However, Stefan had already given the last bit of vervain to Elena for protection. Zach cautiously looks around, then leads Stefan into a cellar. Stefan was utterly shocked to discover a large amount of vervain being grown in the cellar. Now that they have the vervain, the question remains how to poison Damon. On the other side, Elena gets into a huge argument with her brother Jeremy. It turned out that Jeremy had stolen the family's heirloom pocket watch. The Founders Council had specifically requested to collect it, but for Jeremy, the watch was one of the few belongings left by their parents. In the end, Elena returns the watch to her brother and does not hand it over to the Founders Council. Stefan deliberately calls Damon over to have a drink, steering the conversation toward Catherine, bringing up the past. Well, there's no better reason to drink away your sorrows. Damon pretended to drink, but before the glass even reached his lips, he discreetly poured it all out. Disappointed, Damon says to Stefan, "For a moment, I thought we were back to the way we used to be." Zach believes Stefan has failed and laments the waste of a good bottle of wine, but Stefan never expected to succeed. His true goal was to lower Damon's guard, with the real plan yet to unfold. No one knows that the two vampire brothers are actually among the founders of the town. While going through the town's historical documents, Elena is stunned to find Damon's name listed. What shocked her even more was seeing her boyfriend Stefan's name listed as well. Just as Stefan is trying to figure out how to explain, he hears his brother's voice from behind. "That's our ancestors." Not wanting to reveal his vampire identity, Stefan hurriedly cuts the conversation short, but Elena is growing more and more curious about their family. Since Stefan refuses to talk, Damon seizes the opportunity to pull Elena aside, having Caroline distract Stefan by asking him to dance. First, Damon apologizes for trying to kiss Elena before, then explains the tension between him and his brother as part of a family tradition. The ancestor brothers he referred to were actually the vampire brothers. Near the end of the Civil War, during the Battle of Willow Creek, they set fire to the town's church, killing many civilians in the flames. Elena has heard bits and pieces of this history, but Damon, as someone who lived through it, knows the truth that those people were murdered.
Stefan and Damon had someone they loved very much in that church. And when they went to rescue them, they were shot. Murdered in cold blood.
Who was in the church that they wanted to save?
A woman, I guess.
Of course, it was Catherine, but Damon can't say that. When Damon and Elena return to the ball, Stefan is drinking with Caroline. When Stefan offers Damon a drink, Damon hesitates and doesn't accept. After swapping partners, Damon's face hardens as he watches his brother grow closer to Elena. At the ball, Jenna runs into her ex-boyfriend Logan. This man has toyed with her emotions multiple times. Though Jenna is sharp-tongued during their encounter, deep down, she still can't let go of Logan. Stefan, worried that his brother is once again tarnishing his reputation behind his back, warns Elena not to trust Damon, but Elena feels that, at least, Damon is willing to open up, whereas Stefan is much more secretive. Stefan's refusal to talk about his family, or even mention Catherine, frustrates Elena, and the two part ways on bad terms. Meanwhile, Damon, taking advantage of the distraction, sneaks into the historical exhibit and steals a crystal. These relics are all over a century old, and this particular crystal is something Damon hid there himself. Among the three friends, Bonnie is the only one without a dance partner. While drinking alone, she suddenly notices that the once extinguished candle in front of her has reignited on its own. Could she really be a witch? Still unsure, Bonnie goes to the dining room and stares at the candelabra for a while. Just as she's about to walk away in disappointment, a small flame flickers to life. Bonnie stops in her tracks and turns around to see that all the candles in the room have been lit. Meanwhile, a distraught Elena happens to run into Caroline and notices the hideous bite marks on her neck. Caroline speaks evasively, but Elena pieces things together. Whatever good impression she had of Damon vanishes instantly. Furious, Elena storms off to confront Damon, warning him to stay away from Caroline, or she'll tell Caroline's mother about his abuse. And Caroline's mother is the town sheriff. After Elena leaves, Damon's eyes are filled with murderous intent, all his efforts undone in an instant. Later, Elena confronted Stefan to accuse Damon of his crimes, but to her surprise, Stefan wasn't shocked at all and even said things she couldn't quite understand. Then, Stefan catches a glimpse of Damon leading Caroline away and quickly follows them. Damon takes Caroline to a secluded spot. As Caroline pleads for mercy, Damon regretfully circles behind her, his voice smooth and magnetic. "It's okay, I forgive you," Caroline tries to explain, but Damon shushes her, pulling her closer.
I am so over you now.
He sinks his teeth into her neck, greedily drinking her blood, but unexpectedly, her blood makes his head spin and his limbs go weak. A figure steps out from the shadows at Stefan. Stefan whispers something into Caroline's ear, and when she wakes, she remembers none of it. She finds a crystal on the ground. Damon, however, has been locked away in the cellar by his brother. Stefan naively believes that Mystic Falls will return to peace, but the string of murders Damon has left in his wake has already stirred the waters. After the ball, the members of the Founders Council hold a secret meeting, including Mayor Lockwood and his wife, Caroline's mother Sheriff Liz Forbes, and Jenna's ex-boyfriend Logan. From their conversation, it's revealed that the Gilbert family's pocket watch is of utmost importance. With the town's threat seemingly handled, Stefan decides to immerse himself in a normal life again. His girlfriend hasn't spoken to him in 4 days, so they arrange to meet at a bar after school. While Stefan is away from the mansion, Damon begins causing trouble again. Damon pretended to be weak, deliberately causing Zach to lower his guard. Then, in a swift and unexpected move, he grabs Zach by the throat. Though vervain can weaken a vampire, as a century-old vampire, Damon doesn't lose all his strength. Luckily, Stefan arrives just in time to save Zach. After dealing with his brother, Stefan hurries to the bar. At that moment, a bored Elena is playing pool with her ex-boyfriend Matt. As Elena vented about Stefan's flaws, Matt could have used the opportunity to drive a wedge between them. However, his kind nature led him to defend Stefan instead. When Stefan arrives, Matt tactfully makes his exit. Elena demands to know why Stefan is late, but Stefan mumbles and avoids answering, which only makes Elena more frustrated. Suddenly, a voice calls out from behind, "I know you!" Elena turns to see an old man staring at Stefan in shock. Stefan didn't want to reveal his secret, so he immediately offered to take Elena home. The old man continues to stand there, his sharp gaze fixed on the departing Stefan. In an effort to win back Elena's favor, Stefan shows off his cooking skills and even brings up his ex-girlfriend, Catherine. She was beautiful. Her smile could light up a room, Stefan says, but she was selfish, quick-tempered, and extremely controlling. His description matches what Damon had said about Catherine. When Stefan talks about how both brothers pursued Catherine, he seems a little ashamed. He admits he did some things back then he's not proud of, and that's why his brother has never let it go. Stefan's openness wins Elena over again, and she eagerly offers to help him chop vegetables. But in the process, she accidentally cuts her finger. The sight of her blood triggers something in Stefan, and he starts to show his true nature. From the mirror, Elena sees Stefan's eyes darken and veins appear under them. Stefan quickly turns away, struggling to suppress his thirst for blood. Meanwhile, the weakened Damon keeps calling out Caroline's name. She's his last hope. As mentioned earlier, Stefan's compulsion abilities are weaker than Damon's because he's a vegetarian, so Damon's control over Caroline hasn't been fully broken. She hears his call. Late that night, Stefan checks on his brother. In a trembling voice, Damon admits, "You've won."
Now nothing can come between you and Elena. Except the truth.
The lies will catch up to you, Stefan.
The beauty of you in there and me out here is that I can walk away.
Not long ago, their school's coach, Mr. Tanner, was killed, and the students organized a car wash fundraiser to raise money in his honor. The girls all wore sexy bikinis, and the boys didn't hesitate to show off their muscles. The line of cars for the wash was endless. The students' good deed even caught the attention of a local news station. Elena notices that Stefan is still wearing his ring while washing cars. What she doesn't know is that the ring protects vampires from sunlight. An old man in town had mentioned that Stefan looked exactly the same as he did decades ago, which stirs Elena's suspicions. Conveniently, the reporter Logan is aggressively pursuing her Aunt Jenna, so Elena uses Logan to access news archives from decades past. At the car wash, Bonnie notices her classmate Tiki rudely mocking the owner of a beat-up car. Such impolite behavior irritates Bonnie, and with just a flash of hostility, Tiki's water bucket suddenly explodes with a huge splash. Bonnie's witch powers are awakening. Meanwhile, Caroline, who is working behind the scenes, once again hears Damon's sinister summons. In a daze, she makes her way to the vampire mansion, following the call to the cellar door. By now, Damon is at the end of his rope, desperately needing blood. With the last of his strength, he compels Caroline, "Open the door, my love." Just as Caroline pulls back the latch, Zach bursts in. His shout snapped Caroline back to her senses, and she quickly fled from the cellar. But Zach isn't as lucky. Damon snaps his neck. Damon doesn't drink Zach's blood, though. Since Zach has been drinking vervain tea for years, his blood is toxic. Weak and stumbling, Damon chases after Caroline, but he's stopped by the sunlight at the entrance, allowing her to escape. His ring, which allows him to walk in the daylight, has been taken by Stefan, leaving him trapped in the shadows. At the sexy car wash party, with Caroline and Elena gone, Tiki deliberately picks a fight with Bonnie. Angered, Bonnie loses control again. This time, a fiery dragon bursts into life in front of her, spreading flames and engulfing a nearby car. Bonnie stands there in shock. Luckily, Stefan quickly brings Bonnie back to her senses, and at the same moment, the flames disappear. Bonnie is left anxious and shaken. Stefan promises to keep her secret. Meanwhile, Elena flips through old video news footage and discovers that Stefan appears in a clip from a wild animal attack decades ago. Time hasn't left a single mark on his face. As night falls, Caroline returns home, refusing to eat or drink, lying in bed. For the first time in her life, the once well-behaved Caroline talks back to her mother. When Stefan returned to the mansion, he discovered that his brother was gone, and Zach was dead. A terrified and confused Bonnie turns to her grandmother for help. While having dinner at Jenna's house, Logan steals the Gilbert family's heirloom pocket watch, just as Jeremy walks in, but Logan manages to talk his way out of it.
I'm not a believer, I can't be. But how can I deny what's right in front of me? Someone who never grows old.
1953.
Never gets hurt. Oh my god, your hand is it deep? How bad is it?
With all these discoveries, Elena begins to suspect the existence of a legendary creature. In the town's cemetery, Vicky and her friends are having a party. The music in the car suddenly stops, so Vicky goes back to check on it, only to find a sickly-looking man. Out of kindness, Vicky helped him up, only to become Damon's victim once again. Afterward, Damon calls his brother Stefan, threatening him. If Stefan doesn't return his protective ring, Damon's next buffet stop will be at Elena's house. Stefan has no choice but to agree. After hanging up, Damon prepares to dispose of the last body, but to his surprise, the girl is still barely alive. Excited, Damon takes Vicky with him. The next morning, Elena wakes up and sits down to write in her diary, as she usually does, but this time, she's at a loss for words. Her entire worldview has been shattered, so she confronts Stefan, demanding answers. It turns out many of the vampire myths are false. Vampires can eat garlic, drink holy water, and crosses have no effect. The reason Stefan can walk in the sunlight is because of his protective ring. Stefan emphasizes again that he's a vegetarian vampire, only drinking animal blood, whereas his brother Damon, who drinks human blood, is far more powerful. Afterwards, Stefan took Elena to a remote wilderness. 100 years ago, this was his home. This is where all the stories began. Damon and he were once the closest of brothers, but everything changed with the arrival of one woman. This woman, who looks exactly like Elena, was named Catherine. She was both beautiful and deadly, and both brothers fell in love with her. But Damon, out of respect for their brotherly bond, refrained from openly showing his feelings. At the time, neither brother was a vampire, as evidenced by the fact that neither of them had a ring in 1864. Elena begins to piece everything together. The stories about their ancestors were actually the stories of Stefan and Damon. Catherine's energy and youthful spirit captivated Stefan completely. It was near the end of the Civil War, and when Damon returned from the battlefield, he could no longer hide his love for Catherine. The town was preparing to host its very first founders party, and both brothers wanted to be Catherine's escort.
How will I ever choose?
In the end, Catherine chose Stefan. In his youthful arrogance, Stefan didn't consider his brother's feelings at all. Elena is confused by the tangled relationships between the three. According to Damon, it was Stefan who interfered and stole Catherine from him, but Stefan had a different version of the story. So, who is telling the truth? Stefan simply shakes his head and sighs.
She wasn't ours to steal.
It turned out that while Stefan was being intimate with Catherine, she suddenly became hungry. Her face transformed into something demonic as she greedily bit into Stefan, drinking his blood. Afterward, Catherine used her compulsion abilities to manipulate Stefan's mind, preserving his love for her while erasing the memory of what she had done.
You, me, and Damon. No rules.
Damon also fell victim to Catherine's control, turning both brothers into her playthings. As Stefan talks, he digs up a ring from the ground, the very ring that belongs to Damon. When Elena realizes Stefan is planning to return the ring to Damon, she urgently tries to stop him, but Stefan knows he has no choice. If he doesn't, Damon will retaliate in the cruelest way possible.
Am I hurting you?